When AI's incentives collide with democracy, my question is democracy an obstacle to AI? Who controls the future when AI scales to its maximum potential? Artificial intelligence, power, the limits of democracy on that power. Artificial intelligence isn't dangerous because it's powerful. It's dangerous because of the incentives that are behind it. And right now, the incentives to scale AI are starting to collide with democracy, with privacy laws, and human rights. And that's what I want to talk about. So there seems to be an incentive. I'm sorry, Anna. I'm in the middle of a live. I'm in the middle of a live thing. I can't right now. There seems to be an incentive when I listen to Alex Karp, who's the CEO of Palantir, and I listened to conversations that Larry Fink had at the World Economic Forum. And what it sounds like to me is that billionaires who are the ultra, ultra wealthy, who have more money than God at this point, it seems as though they are investing billions and billions and billions of dollars into artificial intelligence. And the only way that that's going to pay off is if AI reaches full scale, full maximum growth and maximum potential. Like anything, like any business you'd invest in, or any business sector you would invest in. And when they get asked straight up, well, how do you scale AI to its maximum potential? The answer is always that AI needs massive amounts of data. Well, data on what? Data on you. Data on you. They need a centralized infrastructure. They need long-term stability. They need fewer legal constraints. And this seems to be something they're openly admitting. I just listened to Alex Karp say when he was talking to Larry Fink at the World Economic Forum that Europe is right now impeding AI's ability to scale fully. And he began to praise Trump and what Trump is doing in America, and then proceeded to also praise China, which currently are both allowing there to be a surveillance state and allow AI to do things to get as much data as possible, whether it's trampling on human rights or constitutional laws or whatever. And I feel like when he says Europe is the problem, he's suggesting that Europe needs to get with the program and start to take away people's ability to have rights, just like the countries that are doing that to help AI grow. Now, why this matters? It matters because democracy is built on consent, our willing participation. It's built on limits, which is checks on power, friction, and rights, human rights. And AI scales best in a system with fewer limits. Democracy is a system built entirely on lots of limits. And so this is, I think, the largest problem that we have right now, is that we don't have enough people talking about this. We don't have enough people talking about this at all. For those of you that are watching me live on TikTok, I am also live on other platforms, so I'm aiming at a camera at the moment, which is why I can't look at the phone and look at the camera at the same time. For those who are wondering why I'm not looking into the camera on the phone. Um, but anyways, this is a huge problem because when powerful people talk about efficiency, listen very carefully. When they're telling you that there needs to be people that are willing to allow there to be a new paradigm shift in our rights and a new paradigm shift in our laws that allow them to spy and basically trample our privacy, and things of that nature, then you're talking about democracy being an impediment. That's literally what that means. So when these AI leaders, and I call them AI leaders because they either own AI companies or they heavily invest into AI companies, but they are the people at the heights of the AI business sector. They're the powers that be among it. When they start to talk about faster deployment of AI, oh, well, we need speed. We need to get it out there. We need to get things out there as fast as possible. When they're talking about having fewer barriers in front of them to block them from being able to get as much data on people as possible, when they talk about more divisive governance, which is really bad, then what they're talking about is often describing that they need us to give less resistance. Because if I were to explain the dynamic of power and authority, power is flimsy, it's bullshit. People who get power, it doesn't last. You get power and you only get it because you either have money or you're in a position of power in politics or a leader, you maybe a president, a CEO of a successful company, whatever. But that's very short-lived because the ultimate authority is the people. And we've always been the ultimate authority. There's no question about that. We, without a doubt, are the true authority and always have been since the dawn of mankind. And we've seen it when there's been dictatorships in countries like Romania and France and places all throughout history. People have rose up and in some cases chopped the heads off of people and said, we're not going to allow this. So the people are the true authority. But what happens when artificial intelligence takes away all your leverage? What happens then? So the fear isn't that they hate democracy. It's that they see it as inefficient to growing artificial intelligence. So basically, it's becoming the incentive of the ultra-rich investors and people who control artificial intelligence companies. It is in their incentive to circumvent democracy, to make artificial intelligence grow faster and reach scale quicker. And the reason for all of this, the reason why they're being so wide open about this and why they're saying straight up that they want to do this is because their reasoning is that countries are in debt. Countries are in debt to central banks and in debt to, bonds and federal banks and, whatever, like America, the Reserve and so forth. And that the only way to become solvent is for artificial intelligence to scale so massively that our level of production ends up bringing in enough economic GDP growth that we will no longer be in debt. And so that's the reasoning. Well, so that's why we need to have, we need to have AI scale. It's got to scale. And if we're going to have it scale as big as it could possibly scale, then we're going to need human beings to be okay with us trampling on privacy laws and human rights. That's a problem. In fact, I would argue it's the biggest problem. It's the biggest issue that we face. It's even bigger than ICE running around and doing whatever. It's even bigger than that. It's the big picture. It's the long-term global problem. Investment changes the conversation because when billionaires, even trillions of dollars is now tied to AI and its success. Trillions. This creates a serious pressure. And this is why they're like, it's got to scale. It's kind of like When you have billionaires that invested in a company and they come into the boardroom, what do they talk about? Growth, growth, growth. We need to do better this fiscal year than we did last year. We need the quarterly profits to be higher than the last quarter. So their incentive is we need AI to grow as fast and as much as possible. And the only way to do that is for countries to stop protecting their people. And this is it. This is where we are. So at some point, protecting democracy and protecting, returns on your investment stop being aligned. It's not even a moral claim, it's an incentive claim. They're just doing it because they have an incentive to. And that's fine. But like I said in my last episode, there are people who do things because they're motivated by incentive, and then there's people who do things because they're motivated by punishment and fear and what's going to happen to them if they don't go along with things. And the more that these people at the top of the AI pyramid continue to do what's in their best incentive, the more that's going to cause people who are at the bottom of that pyramid to have to do things they don't want to do for fear of punishment. This is a major power shift, major economical power. It's a shift in economics. It's a shift in power. It's a shift like we'll never see. Because the old way of life with countries and nations and democracies and governments and things overseeing things, AI is going to trump all that. Or at least it can at full scale. So when they're talking like this at the World Economic Forum, is it code for abandoning rights of humans? Or is it something else? And look, I'm only just trying to give a reasonable interpretation. I'm not trying to create fear and panic. I want to be as reasonable as possible. So I digest this and I think about it and I'm like, okay, some leaders may be asking for clearer rules, maybe a harmonization in regulatory measures. Like they might want countries to talk to each other, be more on the same page with certain laws and certain rights to kind of allow them all like a certain type of access. Because right now there is a problem where, like with TikTok, which I'm on right now, there was a problem where China refused to let, America refused to let China have American data. And so, this type of thing and countries fighting over what your AI is allowed to do in our country to our citizens and so on and so forth is impeding upon the growth rate with which AI could scale. So they could be talking about needing permissions a little quicker, more clearer and fundamental regulations that are equal across all countries so that there could be a predictable framework with how things will play out. That's all a part of it. And there's a way, I guess, in a perfect world, to have AI grow big and have democracy still function, where rights can still exist and oversight can still apply. I don't think that speed and scale require tyranny, but it does require clarity. And what concerns me is how easy this can go left. Because the danger is concentration, not intelligence. So data is the new capital. I can't stress this enough. Data is the new money. It used to be gold, and then it was currency. Now it's data. It's information. I mean, we've always known that information is power, but now there's a way to mass grab information at levels we've never seen. And it's the new capital. Whoever in the next 20 years has all the information is going to be who's in charge. Whoever controls that information controls the outcome. And computing data is the new factory. This is the reason why they're trying to build these giant infrastructure plants. They're doing it because it is the new factory. We no longer live in a world where we need to build these buildings to build things. We now live in a world where they want to build these giant infrastructure buildings and put a bunch of servers in there so that they can data mine everything. You're going to get in a car, AI is going to drive you someplace. They're going to know exactly who you were, facial recognition. They're going to know exactly where you went, the location that you arrived, the time that you arrived. Your devices are already doing that, but it's going to be even worse. They're going to know everything that you're doing on the internet, every time you touch a device, they're going to be fully aware of everything that's happening. And so that's all, I guess, fine and dandy if you're okay with living in that world. But what happens when the power of the people who control these systems bottlenecks? What happens when the power narrows into just a small select few? Because the real threat isn't AI replacing workers, although that's a big problem. It's AI concentrating power faster than society can adapt to that. We do have in America a K-shaped economy. And the future is at real risk, especially, I know in America. I'm not sure about the economic conditions of every country in the world, but I know we're not the only ones that are going to be at risk of this inevitability. Because this K, okay, if you can imagine a K, this K that is being formed, so hear me out. Let's say you have a group of people that own artificial intelligence businesses, and they have another group of people that have invested billions in these artificial intelligence companies. These people stand to gain the most insane amount of power that we have never seen in human history if AI reaches full scale. And so when that happens and AI reaches full scale, middle-class jobs, gone. Upper-class jobs, gone. All these things that people do for a living, gone. AI will literally do everything. There'll be nothing that you can do that AI can't do, and so forth, which makes you absolutely have no more leverage as a human being. You don't have any ability to say, hey, well, what about me and what I can do? And have a way to leverage a talent or a skill or an ability to be able to get some kind of anything that you want or need. And when that happens, this K, the people who own AI companies, the people who've invested in AI companies, they're going to go straight to the moon, straight to the top. And everybody else, even the people who are in the upper echelon, in the middle class and in the upper class, who had great jobs paying a few $100,000 a year, executive positions and this and that, even they stand to lose everything. And everybody will fall down. And what that looks like, in my humble opinion, although I could be wrong, is it looks like we're going to revert back to a time like the medieval ages where you have the king and the royal people, and then everybody else is just the peasants. There is no middle. Only it'll be more of a futuristic situation like that. You'll have the people that are the kings and the royal class will control all the AI and all the money and have all the power and all the resources because they control all of that. And everybody else will essentially just be left to, do the mundane grunt work that they have yet to build a robot smart enough to do yet, which eventually that'll happen too. But before that happens, that's what that looks like. It looks like two trajectories, and if you're not somebody who's in a position right now to invest in AI or to take advantage of AI in an entrepreneurial way, if you don't already own a successful business that can take full advantage of AI scaling and so on and so forth, you are going to slip through the cracks. So when AI creates all this enormous value, it's going to eliminate all these white-collar jobs, all these middle-class jobs, and the ownership of these AI companies and the investments into these AI companies is narrow. And access will become even more and more restricted. It's not really right now, but I guarantee you very soon it's going to be very restricted. This sounds like a dystopia that isn't built by technology, but more or less built by the people who control that technology. And again, I'm not trying to create fear, but I do think that people need to ask the question: is democracy an impediment on AI growing to full scale? And if so, all the billionaires who've invested into democracy, I'm sorry, into artificial intelligence, may view democracy as a huge problem to their future gains. And that is very, very important to ask, because we know, as we've always known, that leaders of countries are usually not very powerful and not very important in the overall scheme of things. It's usually the people that control all the money and the big businesses and all the big, that have all the billions and all the wealth. And so if this is what they want because it's in their best interest, what is our future going to look like? And here's what I would like to suggest you watch out for. And these are the real warning signs. A couple of green flags I could tell you is, if they're talking about wanting broad access, probably not a good idea. If they're talking about, public standards, like having everybody rely at making it a standard publicly for people to rely on artificial intelligence for things, not a good idea. These are green flags. If there isn't an independent oversight, if there aren't some kind of people that oversee this to make sure that human beings will not be damaged, that's a problem if that's not done. And if open competition, I would say, is probably a good thing. The more that they are against the ability for other people to be competitive in the AI space, that's going to become very problematic. And we've seen that with every business sector in American history. Monopolies always happen. 50 years ago, there was 200 different banks. Fast forward to today, there's 3. Every bank that you know of is owned by one of the 3. Everything always consolidates. Same thing with phone companies, cable companies. I mean, you ask anybody how they get their internet or cable, there's only 2 or 3 companies nationwide that provide it. And sure, there might be small companies, but a lot of times those small companies are just owned by the big companies. So we've seen this. What happens when that happens with artificial intelligence? Green flag. Green flag. Red flag that we need to watch out for. If they start dismissing privacy, human privacy, as something that is obsolete, that's a problem. We should probably look out for that. If they start treating human rights, as barriers to their success, which kind of is already being said, it's a red flag. It's a red flag. When centralizing data without having any accountability, ouch. Not good. Huge red flag. And if they do outwardly frame democracy as a nuisance, it's another huge red flag. So I think it's important that we watch out for these things. And I don't want to try to judge anyone's intention by things that they said, I guess. But I will judge whether or not I will judge the future based on what protections are going to still remain in place for us. I don't think that democracy and artificial intelligence need to be enemies. I think that they can get along just fine. But I think sometimes you have people being more concerned with rapid growth with their billion-dollar investments, that's going to take precedence over democracy, or at least I think it could, because democracy moves things slow. It can adapt. It is adaptive, but it's slow. And it prevents scale in a lot of ways. Or I wouldn't say prevents it, but it definitely slows it to a crawl. Because democracy has strong rules. We put these clear limits in place to protect people. It's, distributed ownership and, holding people accountable when they're doing things that are wrong. And AI should serve our society, not require society to surrender to it. AI should be beneficial to us. It should serve us, not become something that we have to bend our will to. And so being cautious about AI doesn't make you anti-progress. I'm not anti-progress and I'm not anti-capitalist, and I'm very much a capitalist, and I love tech, and I love moving into the future, but it does make me serious about power, because power is a big deal. We really need to look at the bigger picture, because if AI's full potential requires abandoning democracy, is that progress? Or is that just power moving faster? And if power is moving faster, is that good? Do we trust those that will have it? Um anyway, my name is Tom Kane. This is another episode of the Executives Playbook. For those of you who are watching me on Facebook, I appreciate the viewership. For those watching me on TikTok, I appreciate the viewership. And for those who watch it later on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell so you can be notified when I go live. And that's pretty much it.